Fit. I'm the doctor.
No, Doctor. I'm the doctor, and I say that you're not fit.
You may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definite article, you might say.
Welcome back to WD Magicast for the week of January 15th, 2023. This is episode 211. WD Magicast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Gracon. In this week's episode, I sit down with Dave and Isaac and have a Q&A beginner's lesson about Doctor Who. Why Doctor Who? Because it will be coming to Disney Plus in November. And it's one of those shows that it's celebrating its 60th anniversary and a lot of people still aren't familiar with it. So I take this opportunity, and we'll be taking these opportunities to help introduce and get people up to speed and understand the show a little bit. And maybe, just maybe, give it a try. And speaking of Doctor Who, I did a survey on Twitter regarding what do you know about Doctor Who? The options being, been watching forever. I know the 2005 plus stuff. So when the show relaunched in 2005. So that stuff. Those episodes. Heard of it, but don't know it. Let's see. And never heard of it is the final option. And the answers were relatively split. It was almost a 50-50 split. It was a 40-60 split. 40% of you have heard of it, but don't know anything about it. And perfect. This is why we're doing these episodes. 60% of you have been watching it forever. And great. Awesome. So these episodes may be a little bit of a refresher for you. Maybe you'll learn some stuff that you weren't familiar with. Or you can always chime in, hey, you forgot to mention this. You forgot to mention that. Hey, you forgot to mention the Weeping Angels. Yes, I did. And you will find out about those another episode if you don't know who they are. And on that bombshell, we'll be back after these words from our friends and sponsors.
Hey guys, Rob for Alt Universe here. Are you into nerdy things like Pokemon, Marvel, and Disney? You've come to the right spot. We have videos, we have games, we have contests. We just do all sorts of fun. Whether it's going live during the week or posting about an article about a new movie coming out, we do everything we can to keep you in the know and have some fun. Oh, and we have swag too. So come on. We're everywhere social media can be found, and we want you to become part of our family. Stay nerdy.
And now, on with the show. Disney has so many different things involved in it and tied up into it and connected to it. And I don't like to limit myself to just one specific area. So we talk about many different things of Disney or things that are involved with Disney. For instance, when I did Parallels, Disney did not create Parallels, but it streamed it on Disney Plus. So therefore, there is a connection there. So I like keeping it in the connections. Just recently, Disney announced that they will be, starting in November, airing Doctor Who, a British show aired on the BBC, created by the BBC. And it will be celebrating its 60th anniversary. Now, if this was any other show, it would be okay when it comes out. We'll talk about it. But the significance of this show being that there isn't too many TV shows, particularly sci-fi shows, that have been around for 60 plus years continuously, more or less continuously. So and it's something that personally I have been following for pretty much my entire life. Besides Disney, this has been a passion of mine. So the fact that I get to talk about it now here on this platform, I think I will justify it. And not too many people know about it, or know they may have heard of it, but don't really know anything about it. And since it's coming to Disney Plus, and I personally wanted to do well, I figured let me take the opportunity and start slowly introducing people to it. And two people that I want to start off introducing it to happen to be Dave and Isaac. And I gave them the challenge of coming up with questions of people that are not familiar with the show and asking me, someone who has spent more than a lifetime watching, understanding, studying the show itself. So, Dave, Isaac, welcome back. Sorry I didn't come up with the crazy introduction for you guys, but I figured we'll just say hi.
Wow,
We'll
I don't
say
know what I
hello
don't know
then.
how to respond to that. That was just a normal intro. Thank you for having me, Matthew.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes. Hey, guys. It's Happy New Year. It's your
Happy
favorite.
New Year!
Happy New Year.
Yeah, man. It's your favorite uncle. Your uncle's back. I know he's been gone for a month. Had to handle some things. But he's back now. So, I'm here to jump on the podcast, and I'm going to
We
be a
found them
lot
buried
more.
underneath some packages.
Yes. Yeah, I just actually finally climbed out of a couple of priorities and first class mail, but other than that, I'm here. I'm back until like I disappear for like another 2 months or so. So, hey, what's up, guys?
Tax season.
Yep.
It's great.
So, welcome back, Isaac. Sorry it's been so long, but glad you could be back and could join in on this one.
Yep.
Dave's been filling in the meantime.
I try. Big shoes to fill.
Well, to make a postal reference, you both deliver well.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's so terrible.
And just like that, we're back on track.
There we go. And everything is right in the podcasting world.
Yes.
So, Dave, I know you've actually now started watching the show a little, the new the 2005 forward version of the show. So you do have a little bit of knowledge coming into this topic. Isaac,
Very, very little, but yes.
what do you know besides maybe the title and me mentioning it a couple of times? Do you have any idea of it?
So I know about the title, which is pretty big, and I know about the title, and yeah, and I know about the title. So
Okay.
it's been no, I know a little bit of Doctor Who. I'm actually a little familiar with Doctor Who. I've seen a little bit, so yeah. I'm not too much of a novice of the Whovian nation, but so I'm pretty good at it.
All right. So, I guess since Isaac's been missing the longest and Dave has been here the most recent, we'll start off with Isaac with any questions that you may have that you want to hit me with, or hit me with your first question.
Yes. So, for the fans out there, so exactly what is honestly like Doctor Who in general? Like, what's the whole premise of Doctor Who, for in starters? So, since you're the biggest Doctor Who fan, pretty much, what is the show about?
I guess to sum it up in a few words, and this was the subtitle for a docu-movie that they did for the 50th anniversary, which I would say is I think probably a really good introduction to anyone who kind of wants to kind of get to learn about the show without having to watch the show, to kind of find out the history about it. It's called An Adventure in Space and Time. So it is show that you have a gentleman, you have gentleman now, but you have the doctor who is the doctor. Basically, he's a time traveler, and not only just time, he travels through time and space, which he has a spaceship. It looks like an old British police phone box That's a whole nother history lesson right there. But it is a box. It's bigger on the inside than the outside. And him and his companions travel through, again, time and space, and they go on adventures. They always, of course, it's like any other show. Wherever they go, something happens. They can't go somewhere and nothing happens. It's not Seinfeld. It's not a show about nothing. It's about used to have a little more historic episodes in the past than it does currently. Usually now, either Earth is being invaded by some group, or they are now either being attacked by somebody, or someone's trying to take over Earth, and or they end up on another planet, in a similar type of situation, or end up on a spaceship. There's a few historical episodes that they end up. Again, this was a lot earlier in the series where they would end up like with the Aztecs or in the Romans, the burning of Rome. So you'd have some episodes like that, but more and more so it's about either the creature of the week, the monster of the week, or bringing back some of the good old bad guys that more frequent the show, and their attack on either a space station, a planet, the Earth, something along that line. Did that make sense?
100%.
Made sense to me.
Like I said, in some adventure in space and time. That's the quick sum up of what Doctor Who is about.
Okay, cool.
So now because I see that it ran from 63 to 89, correct? And then
yes.
And then there was a pause. What was was it 16 years between 89 and 2005? So was the series done at 89? Like, did they plan on to continue it on? They just never pulled the trigger, or did they end it at 89 and then they just rebooted it in 05?
So that was a long time for us who liked Doctor Who. And kind of like in Star Trek, whenever the original series, it was canceled in 89. Just like
it was canceled. Okay.
Yes. The BBC produces shows, and the way that they keep things going and fresh is by creating new shows. Now, from 63 to 89, that is a long period of time for a show to be running. So all right, we need to cap this at some point. They'd been cutting back the budget, cutting back the budget. They cut the budget back so much in the late 80s that there was no more sets. They were shooting everything on location with one or two cameras. Mm. So, how do you reduce costs? You eliminate the warehouse, having to build sets and stuff, and you just go and find locations and film there. So you go back to some of those last episodes in the 80s, which was the Seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, and he's at this location, he's at this location, he's at this location, and very little, if any, sets are used. So yeah, essentially the BBC said, okay, you know what? We're done with the show at that point. And what are the fans to do? They started writing books. The New Adventures of Doctor Who, there was a whole bunch of books that came out and that continued the adventures of the story. A lot of fan fictions and a lot of stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, there's been a few that actually have now been issued into TV, into the new TV series. What's his name? I think even penned several of them. Neil Gaiman. I think even I may be misspeaking, but I'm going to say Neil Gaiman, I think, was involved in even writing some of them, because he's in the new releases of Doctor Who. He's been involved in a few episodes, but yeah. So it just lived through the books, and then 96 96, 97, there was a collaboration between the BBC and Fox that they tried to launch a new version of Doctor Who. So they created the Doctor Who American, quote unquote American, movie. And it was a made for TV movie. It transitioned the Seventh Doctor to the Eighth Doctor, and which was Paul McGann, and he just didn't do enough to warrant a series. So again, nothing happened until 2000, and I would say probably about 2004 when they announced that they're bringing Doctor Who back to the BBC through their Wales production studio.
So the eighth Doctor only got one movie,
Yep.
and that was it.
That's
Done.
it.
Oh,
Again, lived on through
Ouch.
books and comic books, but that
Right.
was about it.
ouch.
Yeah, that was the one. That was the night. Like that wasn't that like around the 90s, I believe, or 1994,
Yes.
1995. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I
that.
want to say it was like 96. But yeah, that was a short-lived time, and yeah, I'll find out exactly what the.
Yeah, so I also do remember until now. I think I do remember. I think what was it, the 50th anniversary special?
Yes.
That they did do a short to kind of give more contrast, to kind of do a follow-up of what happened to that specific doctor, because like you
Yes.
said, there was such a time jump between the film and to the reboot with Christian Eriksen around that time.
Chris Eccleston, yes.
Chris Eccleston, apologies.
Yes. Yeah, there a lot happened, and one of the things that they'd been working on in the more new series that I thought was really nice, and they aren't doing this anymore, and kind of like how Marvel did the one-offs, one-off stories for a while. Doctor Who was doing that, and especially around the 50th anniversary, they did a whole bunch of them to introduce. At that point, what was a segment called the Time Wars, and what was happening because the Doctor inevitably comes out to be wasn't initially introduced this way, but as the show progressed, he was an alien from another planet called Gallifrey, where they do time travel as a normal thing there. So there was this time war between his home planet and this other race called the Daleks. And so they did a bunch of little shorts to introduce the Doctor's involvement in that, and also was to correct some things that the producer, Jonathan Nathan Turner, the guy who brought back Doctor Who in 2005, some of the things that he wrote the fans weren't too happy about, but they already wrote him into that. So when he left and the next guy took over, he's like, okay, we were going to fix some of this stuff, and this is how we're going to go about it. So he wrote these little episodes to kind of fill in some of the gaps of things that the audience didn't necessarily care for, and to be able to bring it back and bring kind of like reset the series without resetting the series, if that makes sense. And pushing things back forward from there. So yeah, Paul McGann did kind of he got a beginning and he got an end, and everything in between is either audiobook, which they do through Big Finish, comic books, or regular books.
Yes. Yep. Very good. Very, very good. Now, for the audience, for our listeners out there, you did sit down to mention that the Doctor's rival enemy is the Daleks. I guess you mentioned that. Tell us a little bit more about who the Daleks are, or what they are.
All right. The Daleks showed up towards the beginning of the show. They would the initial run of the TV series, so from 63 to 89, each story was broken down into parts. So between like 4, 8, some of them even go to like 12 parts. But usually like you'd have a 4-part series or whatever to complete out a story. They were half-hour episodes. So the first run of it, and they used to have all different titles, and since then they've kind of, instead of having each episode having its own title, they gave it an overall story title. For instance, the very first episode is called An Unearthly Child. Now, there were several episodes that the story ran after that of them going back, seeing cave people, and that was the first adventure. They now call that whole thing An Unearthly Child instead of part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, however many parts it was, and each giving its own title and just making it confusing. This is one group. That's that. Second one introduced the Daleks. Again, has several episodes, but it's now known as the Daleks. They became a very iconic creature in Doctor Who. It keeps on showing back up. They let me go into a little BBC history here just to make it seem even more interesting. When a character or a creature is created for the BBC, the person who creates it keeps the intellectual property. It's not like over here in the United States, whenever you create a character for a company, the company owns that character. So let's just say, Isaac, you sat around, let's go back 60 plus years, and you created Superman. And you sold, you went to DC Comics. I have this character. And okay, they make comic books of it. You would still own Superman, not DC Comics. This case, so over here in the United States, you sold it to DC. They give you a chunk of money. You no longer own Superman. They own Superman. They will give rights to you and credit to you, but in residuals. But you do not have creative control over that. Terry Nation created the Daleks in the BBC. Okay, we're going to put it in this show, Doctor Who, and so he wrote this episode, and is a character that has shown up many times. It's a fan favorite. They look like an upside down garbage can with little posts coming out of it and light bulbs on the top of their heads. For the easiest way to describe them quickly, they are. Yeah, that's one right there, Dave. The backstory on them is that they are on a planet called Skaro, and there was this giant nuclear war between the Thals and the Khalids, and it's this big civil war between them, nuclear war, all this radiation going on, and with radiation things mutate. So a scientist by the name of Davros foresaw this stuff happening, that the Khalid race was going to be evolving into this jelly-like brain with tentacles and would need a way to survive. So he created this battle armor for them, because they're more of a warrior race, a battle armor that they would be able to survive in and defeat their enemies. So the battle armor became the Daleks, which is the Khalids is Dalek spelled backwards. That's how creative they got with that one. So they created this. It's like a little mobile tank with lasers, a little utility arm, one eye post, and 2 lights that flash when it talks. And so the second story run of the show introduced the Daleks. The Doctor and his companions ended up on Skaro, not knowing where they are, and they find the city. They wander into this city, and long and behold, they run into the Daleks, and they have been battling each other ever since 1963. Kind of in a long about nutshell.
Okay.
as the show has evolved, the evolution of the Daleks and the things that they could do have evolved. At first, they could only run on metal because they've got their power source through static electricity. They couldn't go upstairs. And that's all stuff that they've kind of worked around as the show has moved on through the years. And okay, they've found a way to move on ground and not limited to just being on metal, because how terrorizing could be a creature be if it only could stay on metal?
Mm-hmm.
So they're considered to be the main antagonist throughout the whole entire series, or no?
They're one of.
One of?
The Time Wars came about, that it was a battle between the Daleks and the Time Lords. The Daleks were invading Gallifrey, the home planet of the Doctor, and that was this whole big thing. And I won't spoil on how that all came finished out. But watch the 50th anniversary, and they are one of the main bad guys. They're very iconic. They have shown up in pop culture all around the world. The cartoons, The Simpsons. I think they showed up on the Doctor. Doctor himself has shown up on The Simpsons a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this weird, especially when he showed up on The Simpsons, it was even less known about than it is now. But now it's become a little more into the mainstream. It still ebbs and flows depending on who the Doctor is in the writing. But back then, when he showed up in The Simpsons, it was still, again, kind of more of a very unknown show that had been around forever. But yeah, the Daleks have shown up in a lot of different things or representations of them. I mean, they're kind of like a Star Wars droid, but much more menacing, much more vicious, and they do have a organic brain to them and component. So it is just So yeah, they're one of the more main. There's not like one single bad guy that runs the entire show. You have the Daleks for a while, then you'll have like Cybermen, the Master.
Is it usually like the bad guy of the week? You know what I mean? Is that
A
how
lot
it's
of
usually
times
run?
it's the bad guy of the week. Yes,
Okay.
bad guy, the monster of the week. So I mean, you throughout the history of the show, you've had so many different ones. You've had the Black Guardian, who was you had the light side of the world and you had the dark side of the world, and there was a battle between the balance between them, and the Doctor got involved in that. You've had Zygons, which is this orange creature that had suction cups all over it that can clone it, make itself look like other people. You've had oh goodness. A lot of different ones. Giant space whales, dinosaurs, cavemen, Napoleon, rebel Time Lords that he's had to face against, the meddling monk, the Master, like I said. Get the names of the one in War Games. But again, 60 years, they've come up with a lot of creative ones, some more than others.
So I guess to follow up on the 60 years, my question would be, there's well over 800 episodes altogether of all this stuff, and then there's the 2 breaks. Where would you suggest people to start from? Now, me, like, I started in 05. I'm going to start at 05 because I don't know. I could go and get those because you told me where they're playing and stuff like that. But I don't know if I could watch something that was made back in 63,
To start then.
You know what I mean? Where would you suggest people to start to watch it? Oh, and then a follow-up question would be, if I'm watching from 05 out, am I missing anything relevant from the first batch of Doctors?
I think the easiest way to answer that is if you step on at any regeneration point is a good beginning point. And you've had 14 of those now. So that usually is a good beginning point. If you're starting at '05 and going forward, that works too. Those shows are much more modern, much more faster paced than this stuff from 63 through 89. That was a lot more. They included more action as the show went on, and technology to be able to do special effects became a lot more available to them. But it was much more story based, a lot more dialogue going on. Where the newer stuff, there is a little more action, is designed more for a more modern audience. If you're starting in '05, are you going to miss anything from the original run of the series that is important? Not per se. Anything that you need to know, they will tell you, or they will make reference to. Some of the references you may not get without going back and watching the stuff. For instance, the opening of the 50th episode is the first couple seconds is a frame for frame shot redone of the opening of the original episode in 63. And there is a scrapyard or junkyard with the name I Am Foreman on it that pops up at that point. Again, that's a reference all the way back. There's a couple characters' names that they make reference to that are come over. It's more of a deep dive type of thing. Beyond that, I think the new series generally makes a good point of informing you of what you need to know of anything from the past. Like when the Daleks do finally show up, they have Eccleston kind of give you a very brief background about them, not having to go into too much. And then as the show goes on and those characters show up more and more often, again, you kind of start picking things up. That being said, I'm not saying that eventually don't go back and try and watch some of the old stuff. If you enjoy the new stuff, and you don't mind watching older television, because some people don't like watching older television, feel free to go back and pick up some episodes, and you start just learning more about the show and appreciating the show more that way. But is it a requirement to? No. And trying to go back to the original episode in 63 and watching every single episode forward it is madness. And not actually even possible, because not all the episodes have survived or exist anymore.
Yeah. I saw how many, like it was well over 800 episodes. And I'm like, whoa, there's no way I'm getting through that.
But again, the original run of the series, episodes are only half an hour, where the new one, they're approximately an hour. So you would get one story in 2 hours, but that's 4 episodes.
Interesting.
Isaac, I think it's your turn now.
Yeah. So we also know about the Doctor. So why you already told us about, like, clearly the show, but why was he given that title, the Doctor? Like, does that title have any significance? What's the reason about that?
That is one of the great quote unquote mysteries of the show. They came up with like a roundabout answer for around the 50th, but it is that's just his name.
That's
the
Doctor.
Yeah, he refers to himself as the Doctor. So yeah, that's kind of the kind of running gag with the show titles, like Doctor Who. Who is he? You know, he's in the Matt Smith era, he liked to call himself a madman with a box. He is just this. He's actually I don't want to say a renegade, but he is an expat from his home world. He did not like what was going on there, so he ran away. He stole his spaceship, the TARDIS, and with his granddaughter left I am done with you people. I don't, like how things are being run here. So I am going to go and leave you. He's just kind of this strange little man who runs around, or more recently a woman too. But he just again goes on these adventures. But there is no answer to it. But they do, occasionally like to make fun of the name. He will say sometimes like Dr. Smith or Dr. John Hartnell, the original Doctor, came up one time. Doctor something. He came with like this gobbledygook answer, and the person he was talking to said, "Doctor Who?" Yes, exactly. Yes. So they'll make fun throughout the series of the fact that his name is Doctor Who, but it's really just a doctor. Unlike the two movies that came out in the late 60s, where his name actually was Doctor Who. So Doctor being his first name, Who being his last name. Starring Peter Cushing of, if people like Star Wars know him as Grand Moff Tarkin. Which was just a retelling of a couple of the movies, a couple of the series. The first one being a retelling of the Daleks episode, and the second one being retelling of the Daleks Invasion of Earth series.
So I'll bring up the regeneration. Now I know from a production standpoint, this is a way to keep the show fresh, keep it going with different lead actors in it.
Mm-hmm.
How does that tie in with the show though itself? Do they explain why it happens? Does his host run out? You know what I mean? And then he has to find a new host. Does he actually pass away and gets reborn into somebody else? I don't know if you want to give spoilers away, but is that what we should expect from this?
Initially, yes, you're right. The William, sorry, I called him John before. William Hartnell. Hartnell was getting on in age, and he wasn't able to. He was getting sick. He wasn't able to carry on the role, and the show was doing pretty well at that point. So how do you replace the main character? So they came up with this idea of the regeneration. Now, the explanation for it had changed a couple times before the final canon stuck. At first, it was just because the TARDIS that he was in, their spaceship, it had something to do with that. Then it turned on to something that his race, the Galfrayans, are able to do. That when their body is worn out or injured, it regenerates into a new body. It's the same person, but with a new body. And as far as the Doctor's case goes, sometimes the mind is still adjusting to create the new body, new personality, but again, the same character. So there's a transition period of rediscovery of self for the Doctor whenever these things happen. But yeah, it is something that is their kind of their superpower, that they are able to regenerate or reform a new body to replace the one that has been damaged, worn out, on the brink of death.
A follow up real quick to that. Do the actors, is there a certain mannerism that the Doctor has that is followed through each different actor? Like, will you pick up on something like that, or is each new reincarnation different?
Each one is different per se. They generally, each actor is usually given liberty to take the character in their own direction. I would say one thing that does kind of follow through the Doctor's characters, if you kind of watch closely, is a slight sense of arrogance. He or she, being this character that's able to travel through time and space and has seen so much of everything, has kind of this over knowledge of stuff, and does sometimes look down on non experienced characters. So like humans are some of my favorite creatures. I don't know why, but you fascinate me. That's a line from the Fourth Doctor. And they'll just kind of like, simple minds like yourself just don't realize the complexity and this and that. So a slight sense of entitled arrogance does travel throughout, and you kind of can pick up moments from each one. But so many people have written and starred in and involved in it that each rendition of the Doctor is different. But yeah, there's a little bit of a, and I'm not saying like it's a bad thing. Like some of the bad guys, like Thanos was arrogant in his ways of thinking this is going to cure stuff. It's a different type of arrogance. It's like dealing with, if you're talking to a super genius, like Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is arrogant,
Right?
but he's the good guy, and there's a logic behind his arrogance because of how smart he is, and the Doctor's not far off from that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Isaac?
Nice. Yeah, no. So, in terms of other within the whole generation process, what's the whole TARDIS situation? So basically, explain why the TARDIS is a police box. Is that correct? Right? It's a police box that he travels in. Explain more detail on what that is.
So the concept of the TARDIS, which is actually an acronym, it's time and relative dimensions in space, is in its pure form a capsule-looking thing, basically a cylinder with a door. And it's, like I said, it's a spaceship that travels through time and space and can go anywhere. When they designed it, these aliens, well, if we're traveling in space and you have this futuristic spaceship landing in some primitive area or less involved species, they're going to know that's a spaceship, and it's going to cause problems and whatnot. So we created this thing called, and this is the term that they use in the show, a chameleon circuit. So it can disguise itself to fit into its environment. Now, the TARDIS that the Doctor has is, whenever you're going to go steal something, you got to steal the one that's going to be easier to use. So he didn't steal the newest and brightest shiny model. He actually stole an outdated TARDIS, and it's outdated. It's like a used vehicle. It was lying around, and not necessarily everything worked well. And the chameleon circuit of the TARDIS that he stole is broken. So when he landed on Earth, it disguised itself as a police box. Now, with the broken chameleon circuit, it hasn't been able to change back. And there's been times throughout the show that he's tried to fix the chameleon circuit, and it worked for a brief period of time and then would break again. So it's a broken piece of the computer that runs the ship that decides what the shape the vehicle will look in, and his doesn't work.
So is it kind of like a running gag throughout the show, kind of like how like the Millennium Falcon, the hyperspace isn't working? So
yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's a fun little character flaw to add to the show. So you have this blue, but it's also become iconic where you recognize the TARDIS because it's this blue box that just shows up in random places that you should not have a blue box appearing in. Of course, throughout the years, they've changed the models. So the how the blue box looks has changed over the 60 years. It's not always looked exactly the same, especially around the 50th anniversary, whenever they switched from um, definition to 4K. So they updated it some more, so that way it looked better in 4K than it did in the previous versions. And then again, from 63, you know, things evolve. People build new sets and whatnot. So it's always changing, always forming. The inside control room where the TARDIS is, where the Doctor runs the TARDIS, has changed throughout the years as well. The TARDIS is also got it is bigger on the inside than the outside. So on the outside, it looks like this police box, or for American listeners, a phone booth. Hence Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted stole that idea. So it's like, well, how do you fit everyone in it? Well, simple. The inside is much larger. So you have the control room, and then you have many corridors and other rooms off that. You know, you've got libraries and swimming pools and medical wards and bedrooms and libraries and kitchens and whatnot all throughout the ship. You know, it's this giant, massive spaceship, but in a tiny little package. So that's always changed. At one point in one of the shorts that they did, they referred to it in a new version for people to understand that the changing of the control room is the desktop theme. So, you know, you could change the desktop theme so it looks different. You know, you spend time, you refurbish your house, you change the room around, you hang Star Wars stuff on your back wall, whatnot. That's right. So that's, you know, the Doctor's, you know, you spending all this time in this ship. Oh, let's change this around. Let's change that around. So that's what he does. And you know, that goes down to the showrunner that, okay, let's revamp it, give it a new fresh coat of paint and make it look snazzy and more futuristic. Change throughout the years. But yeah, so the TARDIS is spaceship that travels through time and space. It uses the power of a imploding star, you know, basically a black hole or a supernova contained inside the Eye of Harmony, and that's what powers the TARDIS. Super powerful vehicle that can again travel through time and space all across the universe, different galaxies. It's been to anti-gravity, anti-universes, and a lot of fun places. And considered relatively indestructible.
Okay, then. So, all right. So I started with the Ninth Doctor, 2005 season. He met a character, Rose, in that. So willingly or not, she was hesitant to go with him. She goes with him on a couple of adventures that I've seen so far. Is that a common theme throughout each season, that he has either a human? Is it always a human that he partners up with? Does he team up with aliens, you know, or is that basically it's Doctor Who and my partner go on adventures throughout time and history?
Yes. For the longest time, they were referred to as his companions.
Mm-hmm.
And as that's changed in the lexicon of humanity, they've kind of watered that term down. And they at one point in the more recent shows, they do make fun of that. But originally they were called his companions. Yeah, it started off. It was him and his granddaughter escaping from their home planet. And two of her school teachers willingly followed her because they didn't understand her, because she was extremely bright. Things that they were teaching, she knew more than they did and didn't understand it. So, and you know, who's this strange little girl? So they followed her, and they got into the TARDIS, and through one thing or happening, they unwillingly set the TARDIS in motion, and it went back to the caveman days, and that became the adventure of the show and those companions. And throughout the years, companions leave and new ones come on. Are they always human? No. He has had people from other planets. I mean, they're always human form, more or less. So they're humanoid.
Hmm.
But are they necessarily from Earth? No. Most of them have been from Earth. One, because of just the show is filmed here on Earth. Of course, it's where else are they
Right.
going to film it? So a lot of adventures happen here on Earth. That goes without saying.
Right, but that sounds cool though. I would, if they mix it up, his companion to be a non-human, what I
There's
mean? That would
been
be interesting.
there's been other. He's never had a Dalek per se as a companion. He's had robotic dogs. That was a big one for a while with the Fourth Doctor called K9, who does make a reappearance in the 2005 series. They did try a relaunch of a K9 TV series that didn't go off so well. But you have K9, a robotic dog. You had another one called Chameleon, who was a robot that could change his shape and look like people. You had Romana, who was a Time Lord herself that would who could travel along. Leela, who was a savage from another planet that would travel with him. Adric, who was from another universe per se. Who ended up, he snuck on and stowed away and became part of the adventure for a time period. Most of the new ones have all been human, Earth human. So I can't think of you've had a couple that have traveled briefly with him that have not been, but any of the main ones that have spent like a season or so with them have all been from Earth.
Okay.
Interesting. Now, in terms of what I know the Doctor. I know you mentioned the dialects earlier in his podcast. Does the Doctor have any other enemies and rivals that he tends to contend with as the series moves forward?
Oh yes, indeed. Like I mentioned before, the Master, who is a renegade Time Lord who wants to kind of, instead of help people, do everything for himself and wants complete power and control. I am this superior being, so therefore I should be going around and controlling everything and causing chaos and mayhem. The backstory to him, he and the Doctor used to be in what they lovingly refer to as the Academy, the school system on Gallifrey together. So they actually knew each other. To what extent? I've heard rumors that they were brothers. Or that they were just classmates or good friends. And the Doctor and the Master went the way of evil, and the Doctor went the way of trying to help people most of the time. So you have the Master. He started with the Third Doctor and has been showing up pretty much ever since. You have the Cybermen, who are giant androids that used to be humanoid. They're from a planet called Mondos that was a alternate version of Earth that, as they were getting older and sicker, they started replacing their worn out parts with robotic parts and ended up just being emotionless robots. And of course, like most emotionless robots, just are focused on dominating other worlds and eliminating the inferior living creatures, organic creatures. So you have the Cybermen. Those are really the main three, again, with the Daleks. that you see time and time and time again. You've had other ones more recently, the new run show up. You have the Ice Warriors, the Ceruleans, that are lizard creatures that used to live. The Ice Warriors are from Mars. They were a warrior race from Mars that, again, because they Mars isn't so good anymore, they wanted to take over other places and ended up on Earth, frozen in ice, hence the name Ice Warriors. And when they got out, tried to dominate Earth. Ceruleans are the original reptilian race of the Earth. They've lived underground and now don't like what the mammal ape men have been doing to the planet and trying to take their planet back. So they've showed up a few times. Trying to think any other baddies that show up more often. Not off the top of my head. Beyond that, mostly it's the monster of the week. A few show up a couple of times here and there, but generally it's those main 3 or 5 if you include the Ice Warriors and the Ceruleans.
I got a follow-up. I guess it's a follow-up question to the Doctor Regeneration stuff.
Yeah.
It would appear that they were all different actors except for one. It looks like David Tennant had 2 runs at the Doctor. Is that accurate?
That's getting into spoiler details.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes, because that has to do with the 60th anniversary. Which I obviously haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is something he had his run in 2006 through.
Oh, so they're bringing him back. Okay, now I see it. So he's coming back for an upcoming one. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now I get it. Okay.
Yes. And how and why that's happened, no one except for the writers really know.
Okay, because I saw that. Because then my follow-up question to that would have been, does he act the same? But you wouldn't know because it hasn't come out yet. Because I'm wondering if he's the same. Like, hello, I'm back. You know what I mean?
No, it was a matter of what happened and kind of cutscene.
Okay. Never mind. That's all I had a follow-up on that one because I saw him twice
fine.
and I'm like,
it's a decent question.
Yeah.
No.
One I can't answer at the moment because no one knows.
Nobody knows yet. Okay.
Get back to me in November.
You got it.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, again, so originally the show started out more as a kids television show under the BBC name, and so how did it went from being an educational program to this like Goliath geek culture show that we see today?
I would say, like many shows, they start off as one thing and they evolve to other things. Like think of a lot of the sitcoms on TV shows start off as a heavy comedy, and then as their run continues, the comedy aspect generally gets watered down and the storylines take over. Like Frasier and MASH and all those. Comedy still is a baseline, but it's not as present of a thing. So Doctor Who is started off as a kids program to do a little educating or just involving of more just a kids show, not so much the educational part. They would throw some historical figures in there for, I guess, kind of learn about them or get some interest going. But yeah, it started off as a kid, family friendly show, and as the show ran on, and your audience starts getting older and older as well, you don't want to lose the audience that you had, so you start just expanding on the idea. In all intents and purposes, it's still a family friendly show. Do they sometimes step on some more modern topics or modern Awareness, yes, but it is depending on political views. We'll put it this way. You get some of that type of stuff in there, but in its purest form, taking politics out of it, it is still a family friendly-ish show. You're not going to have let's call them bedroom scenes in the show. You're not having stuff like that. Yeah, quote unquote bedroom scenes. You're not having,
not safe for work. Let's just say that.
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. For the most part, stuff like that.
Or mature,
Right,
mature
right.
themes.
You get some kissing every so often, yeah, but that's really the extent of things. Now, not to say that sometimes things aren't inferred at times, as I have pointed out about the actor Matt Smith, who portrayed the Doctor for a while, and just beyond just his watching other things that he has done, Matt Smith likes to be naked, and he does like to run around naked. You see him in The Crown, he's naked. And Doctor Who, there was a few points. Not that you see anything. Everything is generally from the waist up, or you just see like his legs. So, I mean but that's the extent of it. And it's done in a colorful, fun fashion. Depending on, again, your personal views and stuff. But it's really, it's kids would get a kick out of it. Adults kind of get the reference of maybe what he was doing in certain aspects. There was one episode he was in a castle, like a Victorian age castle, and this lord comes banging in with his soldiers and breaks down the door of his daughter's room, going, "Where is he?" And she's standing there in this giant ball gown. "I don't know what you mean." And then I guess Matt Smith sneezes, and he's hiding under the dress. And he is in his birthday suit underneath this
Nice.
woman's dress. So, but that's the extreme extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
You do get, again, references to cultures in the future and how things have evolved or changed. When they introduced the character Captain Jack, who is from the far, far future of the Earth, from a point that the humanity now will have relationships with not just humans, but anything and everything. Dogs, cats, lizards, aliens, whatnot. That's how you keep the race going, I guess. But it's you never, if anything, it's usually verbal text, spoken word, explaining situations of how things are, versus you're not getting a visualization, and in conversation points, or it just goes over a lot of kids' heads and it's more for the adults.
Yeah. Some cartoons and stuff like that are like that too, where it's geared for the adult will get it, but the kids goes right over their heads.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you always have to make sure that the adults are just as entertained as the kids.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
So the writers will go out of the way to make adult, more mature, lines. That way, it keeps the parents entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Innuendos.
Yes, I wouldn't say, currently at the moment is necessary for the youngest of audiences. It's, it's definitely not like a 5-year-old is going to sit down and watch this. But a tween, teenager, 20s, my 8-year-old watches it and enjoys it. So it's that kind of age range, and then onward from there.
Mm-hmm.
That is more for where this show is geared. But there's stories of years ago with the original series when the show first started, that sometimes this show was maybe too scary. Now, if we go back and watch them now, we're going to say this is nothing scary at all.
Right.
Remember, Friday the 13th, Halloween, horror movies, slasher films weren't necessarily the thing that they are now. In what was shown on TV is not what's shown now.
Mm.
So some of these creatures that they would come up, guys in rubber suits and stuff, back then was a new thing. And, there's stories of kids hiding behind the couches or having to turn the TV off on because they were having nightmares because of what they saw on Doctor Who.
Mm.
Which seems funny now, but we're talking 1963.
Yeah.
A lot has changed, particularly with what we have perceived or being shown on television from then till now.
Mm-hmm. So I would, we've all seen time traveling shows, movies, blah, blah, blah. The main thing would be to not mess with the space-time continuum. Now, I've texted you about this, for the first three that I saw, but I want you to elaborate a little bit more than just like the couple words you said on the text. Do they buck that system and say, nope, we don't care who we run into, we're going to screw with the timeline? Because every show you see, don't mess with that space-time continuum, you're going to blow up the whole entire existence. Like, how is that handled throughout this series?
All right. Do you want the simple answer or do you want the slightly more elaborated answer?
Whichever you feel like dropping.
All right. Depends on the writer.
Okay.
We'll start off with that. It depends on the writer of that particular episode. A lot of times how it is that if you take the historical context, the event itself and then the end result a lot of times ends up being the historical correct event.
Okay.
And that the Doctor ends up getting involved in it. Case in point, he was captured by the Romans at one point. Guys who know nothing about technology and anything going on. And he's doing his best to keep things under wraps and whatnot. But he's battling the Romans and he gets captured by Caesar and he's dealing with Caesar and here's the guy from the future and trying to figure out trying to avoid stuff. He's holding his glasses behind him. The rays of his glasses are held in such a manner by accident catches the rays of the sun, and while Caesar's trying to figure out what to do with Rome, his plans catch fire. What did Caesar do to Rome?
Burned it down, right? Yeah.
He burned it down.
Oh, come on.
Another similar instance in France. I think it was France or London at something where the TARDIS was in a warehouse. The TARDIS, something happens where the warehouse ends up catching on fire. Again, was another historical event. As far as non-actual historical events where the Doctor's involved, where you're talking about, say, another planet and trying to mess with timelines and whatnot, that he the only real rule that they try to adhere to throughout the show is that he doesn't run into himself. So you can't cross your own timeline.
Right.
And then from there, everything goes. And even it's a rule, but as all we know, all rules are meant to be broken. Has that happen on the rare occasion? Usually special events, anniversary episodes or special event episodes that has that happen. And I think as far as the show goes, I can think of 3, 4, 5 times in the 6 years that has happened. So this is a rare occasion and usually overseen by the higher powers. So that's the one rule, that you do not interfere with yourself. Do not, again, that's something that you see in a lot of time shows, like, oh, don't run into yourself. You can't see yourself. Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Yeah. so on and so
Avengers
forth.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's kind of their main role with it. Other than that, it's there was one point in the show's history that the Doctor went back to the beginning of the Daleks, and he had the opportunity to stop the Daleks from existing. And he took pause and thought about it. It's like, I have this. Do I have the right to wipe out this entire race? Yes, they are an evil, dominant, murderous, destructive race that has caused wars and death and um, horrors all across the known universe and galaxies. But from that, alliances and technologies and um, other events have happened that has caused throughout, the because of this bad event, all these other good events have come from. So who am I to take that away? If I stop this, these other things don't happen either.
Right.
So he chooses, a spoiler, he chooses not to destroy them.
Mhm.
The so he does think about the course of his actions, but like I said, a lot of times history ends up the way it's supposed to be because of what he has done.
Which is a smart way of writing. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's trying to think of some of the other type of situations, but yeah, he ends up in whenever he ends up with Van Gogh. That was another really fun historical event, and again, things happen because of him, not despite of he didn't change things. It happened because he was there.
Because he was there. Right. Okay. I get it. That's smart. I like that.
It plays around with the timeline in fun, sometimes fun in goofy ways, and sometimes heartfelt and emotional, tear-jerking ways as well. So.
Yeah, like the Van Gogh episode, which is a Matt Smith episode. So you will eventually get to that, Dave, if you continue forward.
Yeah, well,
is it's a fun and very interesting episode. There's this giant monster with that's going through this little French village or wherever Van Gogh is. I apologize, I don't remember the exact spot. And he's doing his paintings, but because of how Van Gogh sees things, he is the only one that could see this creature. And suppose he's in some of the paintings. We know what happens to Van Gogh eventually.
Mhm.
So you get to spend time with this character and just how wonderful this person was. And they give you the historical context of people don't like him, which we know to be true. People didn't care for Van Gogh, thought his paintings were weird and strange. Bill Nye, who people from Pirates who know Pirates of the Caribbean, he portrayed Davy Jones in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He is actually in that episode as well. And so they, from the current time, the Doctor and his companion are in a museum and they want to learn about him. So Doctor takes them back. You run into Van Gogh. And then at the end of the episode, the companion is made aware of the situation. They go back to try and stop what happens to Van Gogh, but it is too late. He's already gone. And it's just that kind of emotional hit, especially you as the viewer get so caught up and you enjoy this character so much. And then the historical truth happens.
Mm-hmm.
And, it does kind of hit you at that point. There's been some other times that occasionally a companion may die, and it's done in such a way. I'll have to show you one of those episodes, Dave, that it's done in such a way that it does have a hit because it's not a show that typically happens. The Doctor's always meant to win, but there's sometimes you don't. Or what has it cost you to win?
Yeah. So every now and then it smacks you in the face with a little bit of seriousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always, roses and celebrations at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, that's a part of good writing, man. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And it just keeps you connected to the show.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So you have to keep the show fresh, especially what's the long tenured history it's had.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about something running for 60 years. I mean, besides news programs and maybe the odd soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek hasn't been around that long. Star Wars definitely hasn't been around that long. Mickey Mouse has.
I thought The Simpsons had a long run. And then when you told me, because I knew Doctor Who was around for a while, I didn't realize from 63. I was like, wow. Okay, then.
Here's the interesting thing, and again, more of the history about the show. The show's original showrunner, producer of the show, was a woman. 63, for those people familiar with history, in 1963, that was relatively unheard of. Mm-hmm. But she was given this show to head up and take care of. And again, if you go back and Doctor Who Adventures in Space and Time is a wonderful, again, little docu-movie that they did. The guy who plays Filch in the Harry Potter movies portrays William Hartnell in it, and he does a fabulous job. He actually did such a great job that they brought him into the TV show proper to portray that character again. And it gives you how this show started off, and with everything that happened to this show, it should have failed immediately. So there was questions of what is this show and what is it all about, and if it wasn't for the constitution of the people who were making it that made it succeed. So a lot of trouble going into the show whenever they start off and making the show. So they finally shoot the episodes, they get the thing to air. The first episode airs on the BBC. Again, The Unearthly Child, episode 1, premiering the show on November 23rd, 1963. Do either of you know the significance of that date? None of us are old enough to really know, but if you are over the age of, quick math in my head, over 60, if you're definitely in your 70s and 80s, you would absolutely know that the date. Because November 22nd, 1963 was the day JFK was assassinated.
Ooh.
Yes.
Do you think anybody was watching anything
Doctor
besides
Who?
the news at that time?
Yeah, exactly.
You're premiering a brand new show, kid show, the next day after his death. And remember, they are 5 hours ahead of us here in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So the ratings for the initial several episodes were garbage. They were ready to can the show at that point. Verde, the producer of the show, begged the heads of the BBC office, I have one more story. Give me the next run of episodes. And, this happened. Please just give us another try. They re-aired the episodes. They did better. So they gave her the next run of stories to do, which is the Dalek stories. Those did fantastic. And
the rest is history.
Exactly.
How was it perceived in the States?
No one knew of it. It didn't reach the United States until the 80s when the PBS picked it up.
Yeah, because when I think of Doctor Who, I think of PBS.
Yes, that's exactly how we in the States started to get it. We didn't get it in the 60s. We didn't get it in the 70s. Some people may, if through either family members or whatnot, were able to see it. Even when VHS was starting to come about, you couldn't, because you didn't record shows back then, per se. You couldn't watch it because they used a very different, they did use the PAL system versus the VHS system over here. So there's no way for us in the United States to really see this show. PBS in the United States picked it up and started running it late nights on Saturday nights. And it started taking off here, where you had some conventions and stuff. I mean, it even started making into the show itself. There was a line from Tom Baker whenever he was on this which one was it? A horror at was it Bang Rock, I think it is, where he's at a lighthouse and weird things are happening at the lighthouse, and he has Canine, the robotic dog, and the curator of the lighthouse goes, "What is that?" He said, "Oh, it's a robotic dog. They're all the rage in Trenton, New Jersey." So New Jersey is mentioned in Doctor Who,
Nice.
which is right around whenever PBS started bringing it in. It's maybe, but it was around that time. So for it to become popular in the United States, it took a while because, again, it's late nights, 9-10 o'clock on Saturday night on PBS.
Yeah.
So a bunch of that's where college kids and high school kids started watching it, and that's how I got into it, because someone mentioned it to my brother in high school, and he came home, he started watching it, and he showed my sister and I it, and we started watching it. It was something the three of us would make popcorn and stay up late Saturday night watching that.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's how much different things are now as far as availability of shows from back then till now. Because in my brain, I automatically thought, why didn't we have access to that back in '63? I was like, well, because
there was absolutely no way. Now, because they would send it to other countries, but usually British territories where the BBC had, input into the stuff like Australia or India, Hong Kong. So they would send reels because these were on film, they would send the reels of the film to these areas. Now, here's where I mentioned you cannot watch every episode of Doctor Who, because particularly in the earlier stuff, so the first and second Doctor, Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell, a lot of the episodes, to save money, because they were shot on film is expensive because it's made of silver, they would wipe the film and shoot over it again.
Wow.
So, because it was one and done. They didn't have reruns back then. You showed an episode, you moved on to the next one. You didn't go back. So they would wipe the film and go forward. Through many, many years, a lot of these episodes considered completely lost. Either the film degraded, they were wiped over, they just don't exist anymore. Within recent history, so starting in the 90s, some of these episodes, cans of them would be found in vaults or at people's houses that had the ingenuity to record them off of TV onto an 8mm film somehow.
No, it's big.
Yeah, so they were able to they started finding a lot of these lost episodes. But again, a story would be 4, 5, 6 episodes. They would only find 1 or 2 of them. What they also used to do was they recorded the audio on set. So a lot of that audio still survives as well. And what they've done even more recently is they started animating off of production photos, because you would take photos on the set, so that way whenever you're taking different shots or coming back another day, you would know, okay, this is how this person was dressed, where they were standing, what was happening, or you show the producers what's going on. You have the audio track. So a lot of the audio tracks still survive, and they would animate out what happened. So you now are getting a lot of these episodes that didn't exist since their initial showing in 63, 64, 65 are now coming out on Blu-ray and DVD, digital copies, and having another life. So I've been able to go back and watch episodes that until last year, no one has ever seen,
Mm.
except for the people who watched it that first time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Very interesting. That's good. And it's also nice to be able to preserve something that was from, like you said, the early editions of Doctor Who, and now were they able to make these available to the public where fans can finally have an opportunity to watch? Granted, the quality wasn't great, but did BBC ever made an attempt to release this to the public for fans to take news?
Like the original films.
I guess you could say the lost episodes.
Yeah, they have. There was a couple times before they started doing the animated stuff that, okay, we have this many episodes of it. They would release the ones that they have and then have a narrator talk about what happens on the missing episodes. If they had the audio track, they would just play the audio and put the stills up because this, individual photos are easier to come by.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like I said, more recently, they've been animating them and producing them that way, which to me is absolutely fantastic. And they've even got as far as with the animated stuff you could watch in color or in the original black and white.
That's cool.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's cool. Well, that's a lot. I think that's a lot that was covered with the Doctor Who series. A ton of stuff. I mean, a lot of bare grounded stuff.
Yeah. And my plan is, and I mentioned to you guys, and let me put it out there now for everyone, is that leading up to the 60th anniversary in November, I would like to do something at least once a month to introduce the show and incorporate the Doctor Who into the Disney universe. I mean, is it something we're going to see in theme parks? Probably not. But it is going to be on Disney Plus, and again, obviously something that I'm passionate about. So I'd like to help introduce the listeners to the show and have some other people on in discussions about the show as we lead up to 60th, which again, historically on a TV end is quite the achievement.
I agree.
Absolutely.
No, it's a big achievement.
If I may, I got one last quick question for you.
Yes.
So from as far as the monster of the day deals or the species that they have throughout the show, obviously technology has changed. So if an original monster came out in the 60s and then they bring them back for, let's say, 2015, do they modernize them or do they keep them as the same cheesy 60s technology that they have?
They've updated them. They try to stay true to the original, but they have updated into more of a visually pleasing creature.
Okay. All right.
I mean, as much as visual pleasing as you can get.
Exactly, with a slimy green something.
Yeah,
right.
But like you said, they kept the original essence of the creatures back when they were originally created. So
right.
If you look at the Ceruleans from the 70s, you look at the Ceruleans from 2015, they look. You would recognize that they're the same thing. Obviously, better makeup.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was my last little, curiosity of because again, we're going over a long period of time. Obviously, technology gets better. Did they digitally animate them or did they use them, leave them as like the traditional makeup and masks and stuff? You know what I mean? Sometimes
a hybrid between the two.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on my little wild idea here. Thank you for coming up with the questions and enduring my ranting and nerdiness.
No, we get it. I had a good time. Thanks for having us. And hey, I look forward to more discussions on this. Believe it or not.
Oh, excellent! I'm glad.
No. I don't know why I thought you were going to say midlife crisis, but no.
I thought that's where he was going to.
No. I think this is fun. I think this is a fun segment that's being introduced here on the podcast for people that really want to get into Doctor Who and really want to get into more depth. And who a better person than Matt to be able to share that with our audience? So yeah, I think this is going to be fun.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking more soon about many things. Thank you again for Isaac and Dave joining me in this little session, Q&A session. And I hope you learned something. Let us know. Join the conversation on our Facebook group, facebook.com/WDMagicast. On Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, we are at WDMagicast. Make sure to also check out our YouTube channel where you find audio versions of the podcast and some other surprises that I have posted along the way on there as well. That's at WD Magicast as well. You can leave us a voice message through the Anchor app or anchor.fm website. Be heard on the show. Let us know what you're thinking. Respond to the questions. Give us your input. We would love to hear and have you on the show. Please, I will definitely have you on as long as it's appropriate. So send us a voice message through, again, the anchor.fm website or Anchor app, or record your message electronically through your computer, your smartphone, or tablet, and email it to email@wdmagicast.com. You could also email us any questions or suggestions you may have to that address as well, or hit us up on the social media network. Send us a message. We will get back to you absolutely. Links to all these are in the show notes and on our website, which is www.wdmagicast.com. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have these days, and the fact that we get to spend some time together really means a lot to me, to us over here at the WD Magicast team. We cannot thank you enough. Please, to really help us out, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, leave us a rating or review. We have all 5-star reviews at the moment, and keep them coming. We truly feel blessed, and it doesn't go unnoticed that we have gotten that kind of feedback and response. And I know it sounds selfish that we keep asking for more, but the more that we get, the more those chasers will promote our show for free. Just all you have to do is give us a review, and they'll promote the show, and it'll pop up in the searches and say tell people about the podcast. Or also you can post a link to the episodes on your social networks and let people know about the show. Walt believed in a big Disney family, and so do I. The more people that listen to the show, the better it will be. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted. And while you're at it, consider become a premium subscriber. Really help the show out. Really keep the lights on. You can do this over at anchor.fm/WDMagicast/support, or find our Patreon page. And it will truly help boost the show, and we'll be able to do a few more things and keep things going. You can also check out our merchandise shop, which this way you get some stuff right away, we get some stuff right away. We got some really cool stuff going on at the WD Magicast merchandise shop. Make sure to check it out. Links are in the show notes and on the website. Remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Remember, in Japan, broken objects are often repaired with gold. These flaws are seen as a unique piece of the object's history, which adds to its beauty. Consider this when you feel broken. It's by unanimous. Remember, never give up, never give in. Be your own hero. And now I'd like to end this week's show with a quote from Walt Disney himself, of course. "We developed so many talents as we went along that I lay awake at night figuring out how to use them. This is how we became so diverse. It was a natural branching out." Again, that's Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.